Well, hello and welcome. But CHRAJ boss finally fired. Indeed, we need to find out if she's fired because most of the article says the president has accepted the recommendations. What exactly it means, we will find out today. But then, maybe have we been too harsh on her? Because as a state, if we hire someone, you need to provide her accommodation. If you haven't provided the accommodation, did we expect her to sleep outside or find attendant? What exactly it is was the state looking for? However, Richard Nyama, the petitioner, petitioned and said, listen, you have caused a lot of damage to the state with regards to how much you spend on your accommodation, which is not fair for your position, and therefore you should be removed. Indeed, they looked through it, gave the recommendations to the president to say, yes, she has to leave office, and then she has left office. Now what? Indeed, we'll look at the gender side of it because we've always had this issue that, well, women are not as corrupt as men are, or women are more straightforward than men are, as my wife would say. Here we are today with a woman doing, exactly what the men do. As the saying goes, that whatever a man can do, a woman can do even better. But we'll find out the legal aspect, the political aspect, and by the end of the show, we would have gotten a good education about this. My name is Nana Sakwa. This is PM Express. We'll be talking to Dr. Yao Pong, who's a private legal practitioner. And then later on in the show, Richard Nyama will join us. But before we even start talking, let's watch the insert to set the premises of what all this conversation is about. The movie.
In August 2014, an abuse of office allegation was made against Mrs. Loretta Lamte. She was accused of spending a whopping $4,200 monthly for the 33 months she lived in a hotel. Her official residence was at the time under renovation. Her hotel bill alone amounted to $148,500 at the end of her stay, a figure said to be too huge for a commission that is grossly underfunded and struggling to undertake its mandate. Her choice.
Well, I think that was a truncated report there, but I'm sure this is not news to any of us. This happened somewhere in August. Let me come straight to the studio and speak to my senior brother, Lawyer Opong. Lawyer, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
Should the state not provide the CHRAJ boards with an accommodation? Why do we turn round? Why do we turn round and okay, let's go. Okay, let's go for a break. There's a technical issue, so we'll go for a break. Well, sorry for that little technical glitch, but thank you for staying. And we are looking at the CHRAJ boss who has eventually been fired. Indeed, has she been fired? Because most of the news out there says that the president has accepted the recommendations from the commission. Let me come straight and speak to my legalese in the studio. Lawyer, I've heard so much report, and he always says that the president has accepted the nomination, So, which is which? Has the president fired her, or has the president just accepted the sheet with which, dismissal is supposed to be on?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. I was surprised to read from some sources that the president has accepted recommendations of the committee that the Chief Justice set up under the Constitution to look into the allegations that were made against Madame Loretta Lamte. I mean, the law is clear. Article 146, Clause 9 says the president shall, in each case, act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee. So what it means is that the president has no option whatsoever. Whatever recommendations that are made by the committee, the president shall act on them. So I was even surprised that it has taken more than 30 days for us to hear this. And even as we sit here, unlike the suspension after the Chief Justice established prima facie case, where the actual notice of suspension was published and everybody saw it. In this case, we are just hearing from sources And when you check from sources that should even have copies of this, the removal document or letter, they tell you that they don't have it. So now it appears to be rumors that the people are just making around. But if we accept that that has been done, the point is that the use of the word accept doesn't come in at all. The president shall act. You see, it is important because it is a constitutional provision which is mandatory. So first of all, it is important that we know what is contained in the committee's recommendation. Because if we don't know, or we are not able to know the content, how will we know that the president has complied with clause 9 of Article 146? Because if the president doesn't comply, that can be a ground for removal. If the Supreme Court, for example, a case is brought before the Supreme Court and he still refuses to act on it, it can be a ground for removal.
But can the president say, listen, I think you guys are being too harsh. Let me take this in further. Maybe the Supreme Court to look at it.
No. The way I understand the Constitution, and I think it's one of the clearest constitutional provisions, shall act in accordance with. I think it doesn't yield to any interpretation, with all due respect. So shall act means shall act. If they made recommendation for her to be prosecuted, for example, for maybe causing financial loss to the state, the president has to just inform the Attorney General to also look at it, find out whether criminal prosecution or proceedings can be grounded on that recommendation. But there is no option at all for anybody, at least not the president in this case.
To just have to act on the recommendations.
In accordance with the recommendation, yes.
The state hired this woman. I mean, and she's a high-profile employee. You know, she's not just on average. And we didn't provide her accommodation. The accommodation was unfit. They were doing renovations on it. Didn't we expect her to, live in a decent accommodation? How then do you turn around and say, well, you're misbehaving?
Yes, it's a very critical question because she comes under the group of people called Article 71 office holders. And that, the list that you see there, they are mostly, to a large extent, they are mostly holding independent public offices. And so the independence is not just in theory. It must be in practice. So that somebody should not have the power to determine when to give you an accommodation or when to make monies available to procure one. That will derogate from the independence of the office that the person is holding. So whilst we are looking at, I think we are making so much out of this, also because of the nature of the position that she holds, the sensitive nature. Probably the standard may not have been high if it had been somebody holding a different public office. But in this case, because of the office she's holding, which relates to anti-corruption issues and human rights and general comportment, like a watchdog, it used to be ombudsman. And the ombudsman's role, in fact, the ombudsman's role has been fused into the functions of the Commission for Human Rights. And the ombudsman, where they have it, very powerful personality or group of people, that people are usually, even they are afraid of them more than they may be afraid of even the police, because when they step in and start investigations, they never stop until they have finished. And the outcome in some other areas, they may have serious repercussions, even politically and in terms of your own economic outlook and so on. So she has that function to perform. And I think that's the reason why the bar has been raised a little higher for her than it might have been others. And let's not also forget that when it comes to the facilities that are available to her and in terms of the procedure for her removal, it is akin to that of a court of appeal judge. And so the same procedure by which, or the expectation of the law of a high court or a court of appeal judge in her case, and then her deputies being high court judges, is higher. So you will see that it was the same procedure that we have adopted now in respect of some named High Court judges. Same procedure that she also went through. So yes, I think that it was important that at the time, if we are really minded of ensuring her independence, not her, but the commission's independence is intact, then we should, maybe moving forward, also make sure that we put in as much as will ensure the enhancement of their independence. So not just her. You know that CHRAJ is generally not able to perform their functions in recent times because they're always complaining about either lack of funds or inadequate funds. And why we haven't been providing for them, and it runs through a number of these institutions that serve as supervisors of the executive in particular. Well, normally when you check, the funds that should be available to them, they're not able to get it. The courts are able to do so to some extent because they have internally generated funds. The CHRAJ cannot do so because they cannot even charge you when you bring matters before them.
Well, joining us now is the man whose chip on his shoulder fell off and his last nerve was sat on and decided, no, I need to test the law, and he tested the law and the law responded to him. Richard Nyama, you are welcome.
Thank you, Mama.
Richard, I'm reopening the whole case and I'm defending Loretta altogether. And what was your issue to start with? She had to have a place to live. The CHRAJ did not have money. She had some money to spare, so she rented an accommodation until such time CHRAJ gets money and then they refund her. Yeah. What could she have done so wrong?
Good evening to your viewers. And let me take this opportunity to thank Samson Ladi for a good job done. His technical guidance and supervision led to the success of this case. A lot of things went wrong. And during the public hue and cry, if you listened, we mostly make the mistake of getting sucked into the rumors and the arguments on radio and the television, but I had to go beyond that. And the evidence gathered was damning. If you had the Commissioner of Human Rights who was complaining of lack of funds, okay, and we spent 18,000 a pop on a trip, okay, that calls into question your sense of judgment and priorities, especially when you cannot account for the benefits of that trip to the office that you hold, to the country that you purportedly serve. And so, and if you have a series of such travels, you have 4 or 5 travels in a month, it's questionable. Where are your priorities? You can't even hold educational programs that you're mandated to do, and yet one trip could sponsor such a whole program. And so that was an issue. And it isn't true that there was an accommodation provided for her. It was about how lavish it was for her. Now, you had spent 182,000 Ghana cedis renovating a property that your predecessor left. And when he was leaving, the renovation bill for that same property was 60,000 Ghana cedis. You had just finished spending 182,000. And it wasn't still up to standard for you to live in. And so you move into a plush AU village building that was costing the taxpayer $4,500 a month. The worst aspect of it is that this same person pays a down payment of 2 years. And that's what caught my attention. 2 years rent, $4,500.
Richard, but we all pay 2 years.
Yes.
Everybody pays 2 years.
Yes, she hasn't got the right to do that, because if I am peeved, she's the person I should go to. And the irony of it is that she didn't even know the law exists. She was ignorant enough to tell us that she thought it was 2 years and didn't think it was...
she wouldn't know every single law that applies in the nation. Nobody knows.
No,
there are laws that, you know, my lawyer friend may not have heard before.
Yes.
And so this could be one law that she's never come across.
Yes.
And as she said, my predecessors have always done 2 years. I mean, everybody does 2 years.
You see, and then you go the predecessor, which of the predecessors? There was only one that rented, and that was Miss Anna Bosman. Anna Bosman was on the Spintex Road. She was renting at 2,000 Ghana cedis. Look at the difference. 2,000 Ghana cedis. You just took over from her and you're renting at 4,500, and what's supposed to be the excuse? What changed? Obviously, the area that you're living in will call for that kind of an amount. You wanted it unfurnished or furnished. It was so confusing. Then, whilst this was going on, the Patrice Lumumba building is there. It's renovated. You don't move in. You're not satisfied with AU Village. And then all of a sudden, you have to go close to your children's school. And so you move into a hotel. That will cost us $5,500 a month. And going into it, it was becoming clear there was some previous relationship with the hotel. Some relationship that led to her appearing there, and all of a sudden having a standard room turns into a suite that suits a family. A suite that is supposed to go for $250 a night is given to you at $180 a night, and we are supposed to be happy. Oh, they did you a favor. What brought about the favor? What if next time I have an issue with that same hotel and I appear before you? Because of this favor, I'm likely not to get justice. And for me, it's not an excuse to be ignorant of the law in any case. If you didn't know that the Rent Act requires you to pay 6 months maximum, and you were paying 8 months, you went beyond that and renewed. And before I took the case out, my counsel actually wrote drawing her attention to these things and asking her to do the honorable thing and step down. She refused. She insisted. I actually remember the officer in charge of, is it rent control? Mm-hmm. Yes, was brought onto a program and asked the details. Mm. And he was furious that if actually she did it, something must happen. Wow. So there are a lot of things that took place. Some indiscretions. You wouldn't believe it. She is the chairman of the Association of Commissioners of Human Rights in Africa, NANRI, National Associations of Human Rights, African Human Rights Institutions. That very institution that most of her travels were purportedly being pursued to inure to the benefit of Ghana, actually indicted her for misconduct. They were questioning her judgment. There was an audit report that was supposed to be accounting for certain things, and she failed to go to the meeting for her to be audited or to be questioned by her peers. Uh-huh. So it wasn't just a matter of we in Ghana seeing that there's something amiss, but her peers on the African continent were questioning her integrity, her competence. Beyond that, I had put a case before this same commission, 2011, against Dr. Stephen Opuni. Now, you know what? In 2011, Professor Alex Dodu, who was the chairman of the Food and Drugs Board, and Dr. Sipayanki were to appear before CHRAJ as my witnesses against Dr. Opuni. In a similar case, he had rented a property on the Nima Avenue that I called into question. Their office rent was astronomical. The case sat on the shelves of CHRAJ for 3 good years. There was no response. I took a reminder. I brought out a press statement drawing her attention to it, and now she will have none of it. And so, when she found herself in a similar case, I was wondering how she would go about it. There is a lot that took place in the, at the committee hearing.
Let me bring Lawyer Pond here. But who determines where the benchmark is that, oh no, this property is too expensive for you, or that one is too low for you? Where is the legal benchmark? If you brought me, if I was before you, then your property is too expensive, or your property is not expensive enough. Who sets the mark?
Yes, I mean, then, you see, the first place, I think the question to ask is, who found the money for her? Who approved of the money for her? These were no monies that came from CHRAJ's safe.
Well, let me announce the WhatsApp number so that you can join in via WhatsApp, and that's 0560 800 000. 0560 800 000. So you can join via WhatsApp, and then I'll be reading your messages as we get along.
Yes, I mean, so obviously, the Ministry of Finance, which is keeping the key to our consolidated fund, made the money available to her. Works and Housing were the ones that are in charge of renovation of state properties. They were in charge. When the person makes a demand and you lead her on and you grant it for the person, then later on you cannot turn around to blame the person alone. So even if, and as I said, because of the position she occupies, one may say that she was culpable. What about those who made it possible for it to happen? This is not a person's private property. Then number 2, and I like the angle that he took. When the matter came up, I insisted that we need to find out, first of all, who owns this AU building, AU house, that he was renting. 2, the owner of this hotel. We needed to find out who are they, because it is relevant. Because if they have also encouraged this human, if you like, they have abetted, if a crime has been committed, they have abetted it. You go around and you find out that, as at least in the case of the hotel, I think he wasn't coming out. But I have always suspected that it just cannot be any person's hotel. Neither can it be a stranger's house at AU where she rented. We need to find out. Moving on. So that's why I said it's important that we get to know of these recommendations. What exactly did the committee recommend, which the president has no option than to act on? And then moving on, all these people the one whose hotel she rented, let us find out, is that what he charges or the hotel charges in a normal way of business?
Well, in this case, they gave her a discount, so we have to pat the hotel.
Well, that is what we are told. Have we confirmed whether or not in the normal business, if I go there and I want to stay there for a couple of days, is that the same amount I'm going to pay, looking at the same suite or similar?
No, there's no control price. I can decide today that, well, I'm charging $350 for this room. I mean, you can't determine how much I charge.
But that is when what we do is we pierce the veil. We find out who are those behind the veil. What other benefits they may have had from her, for which they would have reduced it for her, and not I. Is it possible that a similar case involving them was brought before her, she failed or refused, or a refusal benefited them, and so this is an opportunity to pay her? Or is it the case that so much amount has been taken from the state, and by some calculations, somebody has engage in what we call unjustifiably. Somebody has got some additional monies. So we don't have to even end here. This is just the beginning. And I'm saying that, and that is the only way. Look, there are a number of people in this system. You get a minister. The minister has his own house. Then he will rent out a portion of even the government bungalow to people. I knew of a parliamentarian who even did that. And sometimes too, I ask the question, all these are ministers and these top people. Don't they have their own houses in Accra? At least. Why should they even, can't they just sacrifice a bit for the state? That you should by all means, you have your private car, you should by all means have additional 2 from the state. You have your own house, you live in it, you become a public official, and then you just move to this particular house.
For security reasons, so that when they stop being that position, they can run away back to their house to hide.
I know a few others who still live in their own houses, and we have not heard of any reported case of...
They may not be in such a sensitive, because CHRAJ is quite sensitive, Richard's case here,
but there are some judges who live in their own houses. At least there is sufficient security. President Kufuor was living in his own house when he was president.
It doesn't get
sufficient security arrangement is enough, so that others who are really in need, who don't live in Accra, have had to move from other remote areas, can get access to this property. The worst is, sometimes when they are moving out, it is sold to them. That is even worse. So we need to look at this holistically. For me, the best thing would be, this is your position, this is your salary, including all allowances for accommodation. Go and find your own house. The state should not be in the business of being compelled to provide this, because that is where the thing is. Parliamentarians, we are almost every term, at least 50,000 for rent. Have we even found out whether they actually apply this money for rent? Because some of them have their own houses anyway, they will still take the rent, which is not refundable. It's about time we look at this thing holistically. Just give the person the conditions, including allowances, accommodation. Let the person go and find, if the person will find one room or chamber and hall with sufficient security, that is for the person. So that we don't overburden ourselves with all because some people even rent their own houses to the state.
No, but let me say quickly, but legally, what is a fair amount? What is a low amount and what's a high amount?
Well,
who determines?
It is a rent magistrate or the person at the rent control. The Rent Act is here, and I'm just looking at it.
And they can look at Loretta and say, well, your rent was too high.
No, they don't look at the person. They look at the estimated value of similar properties in a similar location. I mean, obviously, property, chamber and hall at, let's say, Cantonment, may not be the same as, with all due respect, maybe that at, a place called Chemuna around Choco, obviously. So they look at this estimate and then will say that, well, a reasonable amount of, let's say, 2,000 is okay. That is what the rent recoverable. All right. And in this case, it's not all. In fact, when you read the law critically, it is rather even the person who demands it that has committed the offense. Section 25(5) here is saying clearly that is what it's any person who, as a condition of the grant, renewal or continuance of a tenancy, demands, in the case of a monthly or shorter tenancy, the payment in advance of more than a month's rent, or in the case of a tenancy exceeding 6 months, maybe as in this case, the payment in advance of more than 6 months' rent, and shall be guilty of an offense.
That's the landlord.
Yes, and in fact, well, by extension, the two of them, because if it's a criminal offense, you can say that they both may have then committed the offense. But the landlord who received this amount, we should also look for that landlord.
Let me take a break and come here, because realistically, well, if I have my house and you're not going to give me 2 years, well, go and be homeless. What then do we do? Because each and every one of us would pay a year, 2 years to get a roof, because it's
the least respected law in this country.
Let me take a break and come back and see how we solve this problem. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. Your messages are coming in. This one says it's not enough to just fire her. She needs to refund part of these monies, and criminal charges must be brought against her. From Al Hassan Hadi in Boko. Hassan wants the money back. Let me go here. This one is from Daniel in Atebubu. And Daniel is saying that, so you see, Buklong, we have all left our laws and institutions not working, and others are killing us by altering almost every process stuff at the least chance. Oh, Ghana, when? He comes in again and says, the speed with which public funds are being stolen by those supposed to protect it is worrying. My brother, Nyama, needs commendation. If we don't put our public purse on the check, we will continue borrowing unnecessarily and pile up debt only for unsuspecting people to misapply them. This one says, good evening, sir. Please, I want to know whether the woman as a GA doesn't have accommodation in Accra. Also, accommodations to public officers must stop because even messages rent out of their own meager salary. Yeah. This is Joyce. Thank you very much. Well, before the break, I wanted to find out. The number is 0560 800 000. 0560 800 000. Send your messages in. I'll be catching up. But before the break, I just wanted to find out who determines what high rate. Now you did the comparison, but no, she's renting in lush areas. AU village, it's 4,500. You say no, you don't deserve to live in AU village. You know, move to Chemu or move somewhere. Who determines that?
The point is that it is the rent magistrates or the people at rent control who determine in all cases.
No, but the rent she's paying is recoverable. Fair. The rent is fair for the areas she's living in. I mean, AU village, 4,500.
Who determined that?
No, that wasn't my argument before the committee. Ms. Lamte is on a monthly salary equivalent to that of the appeals court judge. Mm. Before I went to the committee, I found out how much the appeals court judge take. It's in the region of 8,000 Ghana cedis. Now, the laws require you to have 20% of that in lieu of your own accommodation. Okay. And so she cannot have more than 1,600 Ghana cedis per her salary cap as rent.
Wow.
So if she went and had a rent of $4,800 a month, that is more than her salary. So straight away, there's a problem there.
So she can, the state will pay the 1,600. She has to,
Yeah, if you want a house in Dubai, you pay the rest. Per your accommodation, per your salary, you are entitled to 1,600 when I did the mathematics of it.
But are the paymasters not aware of this?
Yes, so who pay the money?
So, no, unfortunately, these are the things that she ended up tying the noose around herself. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Finance, the Works and Housing, none of them was involved. All these payments were not budgeted for. Nana, read my lips. They were not budgeted for. They were not in the budget of CHRAJ. They were not in the budget of the ministry to CHRAJ. They were personal decisions.
So she went to a bank and withdrew these monies standing in the name of CHRAJ or what?
No. She wants a building or a rent worth 4,500. CHRAJ has to make the money available. Okay, so they take it from their their monies for the period. So
and
some
aspects is sitting there also doing that,
some
knowing
parts
that is wrong.
of CHRAJ's work will be denied the resources needed because it's unbudgeted for. CHRAJ knew they had a building, an official building that was available for rent, and before Emil Short left, he indicated, and in his interviews, he said he left the place in a habitable form. And so, if you came and even changed the figures and then she wanted extensions done, change the kitchen settings, extend the bathrooms, and link up houses,
Jacuzzi.
virtually building extras within this thing at our expense. And that is supposed to have prolonged the whole process. 3 good years renovating. It's unbelievable. But the most important thing was that all these things were not budgeted for. And she virtually forced the commission to vomit the money to satisfy her standard of living, if I would say.
She couldn't have dealt with the landlord personally. There must be some estate department that deals with the landlord.
There's an estate department, but she did. She did. The signings of the rent, everything was in her name. There was an estate officer who initially she was intimating was the one that looked for it. But then, you see, and that's the other thing. I would advise anybody who is going to court, please don't talk to the media. Because it was one way I got her. She spoke to Joy FM, she spoke to City FM. I took them, I transcribed them myself because I wanted to hear every word. And the inconsistencies and contradictions between those 2 interviews alone were enough to nail her before we went into the legalese. Now, you indicate that you had nothing to do with it. There's a rent estate department that deals with it. But then, in your disposition, you come out and say that you saw the advert online and then you applied, you called. And finally, one way or the other, you and the woman met. You actually gave the keys to your security. It's a long, winding, unbelievable story. But there was personal contact. She virtually took charge of the process. She had to inspect and be sure it met her tastes. So there were a lot of things wrong. There were a lot of things wrong that under normal circumstances would not happen.
But why can one person hijack the entire CHRAJ? Yes, she's the boss. But, I mean, there must have been a point where say, no, madam, this is well beyond what we can do.
No, this is widespread, where people just see their bosses as the omnibus. Once the person says this, nobody can check. You are an accountant in an institution. You are paid for it. You should be able to tell, madam, I don't have the mandate to make this money available to you. Let the person do their worst. At least you would have had your conscience clear. Let them even dismiss you for insisting on the right thing. Because I cannot see how this woman by herself will be able to go into whatever. I don't even know whether CHRAJ have got their own bank or bank account. If they do, and these monies have been paid into that bank account, she alone cannot be the signatory. There should be others. But probably because this is the boss. That is what we do. You become president today and you are old man. Everybody is afraid to even tell you when you make mistakes. Meanwhile, that is your duty. You are observing the person. So it should be, it's widespread. People who are being paid, professionals, and that is the worst part, who are being paid to perform functions for the state, will just not do the right thing because their boss disagrees. So if he alone can do the job, why are we paying you for the job you are doing?
So like in this case, do we go back and say, well, you're entitled to 20%, so everything over and above the 20% refunded, or that cannot be done?
Well, the except that I heard, at least from GBC, was that the commission said, the committee said some actions of her may constitute causing financial loss to the state.
Well,
if that is the case, then my point has been simple. When it comes to criminal offense like this, recover the monies first. Because sometimes we concentrate so much on the criminal aspect, the person will invest the money, he will go to jail. If he's lucky and a favorite of hers or his becomes a political head, the person comes back and is given further public functions or office to, and then the money he has invested is still being used by her or by himself. So I will insist that in that case, recovery is very important. Even if the commission did not recommend, it is still for the Attorney General to go further into the matter. Luckily, this is not a commission of inquiry for which these technicalities may be an impediment. So they should look at the report, and that is why all of us should have the benefit of the report of this committee. We scrutinize the recommendations and match them one by one as to whether the president has or is or about to implement them. And then we can all also continue to put pressure. It is the end that will deter people, and not just the beginning. I see this as beginning. She can always go back or go to elsewhere. But another point is, how do we even do due diligence of the people we appoint to office?
Now, let me take a break, because that's one whole major thing. How, because the next one is going to come, and how are we going to make sure that this person coming is of integrity, and whose integrity has he or she got? But this one is from Musa from Sampa, Bronga Hafo. Good evening, Nana. Congratulations to Mr. Nyama for his commendable effort. May God bless him. Please ask him if he could educate us on how we could also take some unscrupulous people who are causing financial loss to this country to court for a refund. I'm sure he'll come back and tell us how we can do it. Stay tuned, don't move. Very much for staying. CHRAJ boss fired, and that's what we are talking about. But the big question is, how do we then hire the next one? This one says, we need men like Richard Nyama in this country to be the voice of the voiceless, who will always see to it that the right thing is done. God bless you, Richard. And this is Mashoud from Wa. God bless you too, Mashoud. Now, actually, let me start with you, Richard. I mean, as part of your petition, did you just want him removed, or you want the money back to the state as well?
Thank you, Nana. And that ties into lawyers' request for the immediate publication of the report. Seriously, that's what I'm looking up to. I took the case. I'm the petitioner. As you and I speak, I have no copy. When I contacted the Judicial Secretary, the information I got was they made only a copy, and that's the one with the president. And so there's none in circulation. Now, it is not a secret document.
No.
It's a public property. The president did not take that case there. It is not his. I spent my time and money getting this sorted. I beg of him. Firing her is just one of the many requests we made. She tied this state down to a hotel bill by going to actually take a loan and pay, and then expect the state to reimburse her. It was just not on. But the committee was asked to do its job within its mandate and make recommendations. Now, let me put on record, the committee did a diligent work. They did a clean job. Every single day that we sat there, their impartiality showed. They did the work they had to do. And so I believe in whatever recommendations they come out with. I am very sure that they have recommended that this money should be recovered to the state. I am also very sure that looking at how CHRAJ operates, they would have recommended that there should be some restructuring, re-engineering of the whole CHRAJ thing. It is absolutely, unfortunately, useless, let me say, an institution as it stands. Because I have been to them on the Muntaka matter, on the Ayerga matter, Dr. Stephen Opuni, and in all these instances, I had to be my own Anas. I get the information myself. I point them in the right direction. Go here, go here. In Ayerga's case, for instance, my information was that the tractors were at a point in Nasia. Nasia is far away from Boko, and yet CHRAJ could not transport anybody to go and verify. And how are they supposed to come out to a conclusion that what you're saying is right or wrong? In the same instance when it came to Muntaka, the same thing. And when you question them, they don't have enough lawyers. They don't have I don't know if they are. I've never met a single investigator on any of the cases I've taken to them. Now, the law just requires me to put in a petition. The rest is left to them. They are supposed to do this prima facie thing. Yeah. Do your preliminary investigations, establish that there is a case, and then we'll go into conference and deal with it. None of that takes place. So you ask yourself, the three arms of CHRAJ, administrative justice, human rights, and corruption, which are they doing? They will rather comfortably sit down in the conference room. You and your wife have an issue, or you and your boss have an issue, let's trash it out. But the one that affects the core of this country, Nana, I have read a lot of researches on corruption in this country and in the on the African continent. For every dollar that comes to the state, $5 goes into individual pockets. You are the leading institution to ensure that these monies don't go waste. If we have that kind of money, we will not go to the IMF for $900 million and they are hanging us around our noses and our necks and we can't breathe and our president cannot say jack. And so, for me, we would have to look at the whole CHRAJ makeup, structure it in a way that will be beneficial in the fight against corruption. If we have to train lawyers and pay them well, get investigators. Are you telling me CHRAJ cannot buy the equipment and us is buying and putting buttons and all those things to go and tip people and take evidence?
Let me bring lawyer in here because I'm running out of time. But lawyer, yes. I mean, this lady, I mean, you can't judge a book by its cover, but I mean, she looks decent. You know, I mean, if I did a lineup, you would choose her to be a CHRAJ boss. So where do we go from here?
Well, we say that even the devil does not know the intent of man and woman. So. Of all the powers that God gave to him, the only thing that he didn't give him is to know the intent of humans. So, yes, the appearances are the same, may be deceitful, but perhaps, but that's why I say that perhaps she may have been led into these things. And that's why I'm looking more at those who facilitated all this. The accountant there who continue to issue.
With our next CHRAJ boss, what should we look for? Her previous rent records or his previous rent records? What do we look for?
Well, the same thing that we should look for when we want to appoint a judge, because after all, her position is equivalent to that of the Court of Appeal judge, with the exception of a few technical applications and things like that. So we have to look at the background. First of all, does the person qualified to be a Court of Appeal judge or a Superior Court judge? We look at it, and then the background. But that is the extent to which we can go. People can change when they are faced with some entrapment and things like that. But it's also, when he was talking about it, appears that the matters that concern the state, which also relates to the executive, were the ones that they were not doing. And it also ties into even this whole appointment processes. It appears that when you don't really qualify or you are not competent and yet appointed, you feel a favor has been done you. And you'll be at the beck and call of the one who appointed you.
Well, all too soon, that's what time will allow us. But I want to say thank you very much to Lawyer Yaupong. Thank you very much to Reginyama.
Nana, if I could have a word on this, who should be appointed?
20 seconds. I don't know why they're kicking me off there, but 20 seconds.
Nana, I have a very strong suggestion, and I've been accused of campaigning for somebody. But seriously,
don't say Martin.
I am saying him. I'm saying him because yes, but you see, that is,
do the job.
You see, for me, we need somebody who would damn the consequences and work for this country.
You want us all jailed?
Oh, if unfortunately,
no, I said it lightly.
Unfortunately, yes. I get the joke in it, but unfortunately, Ghanaians, 99% of us, not excluding myself, are hypocritical and will not face the facts. But a lot of us, if not all of us, belong to jail when it comes to issues of corruption and our moral standing. But there are a few who have proven it.
Yeah.
This man has proven it. He has faced presidents and told them in the face. I wish
if it
we
was a
will,
matter of voting, I think I also vote
yes.
Martin.
Oh, yes.
But thank you very much. Tomorrow's personality profile, female carpenter. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Female carpenter. Really? Well, you can't miss tomorrow's personality profile, so stay tuned. But as I always say, tomorrow we're back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching. Our time is up. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.